So that little darling, adorable baby of yours is not letting you sleep.
No, she's not.
Well, she's awfully cute when she's awake.
She
She's
is awfully cute when she's
awfully cute.
awake.
Yeah.
It is true. Just wait a
But
minute
there's
for
also,
everybody to join
I know,
us.
there's also something sweet about watching a baby sleep.
Yes, yes. When she does choose to sleep, it's adorable. It is adorable when she sleeps. It hasn't happened, but it's no. She kiddo is just being a baby, and sometimes she likes to sleep for me, and sometimes she just doesn't. And so I'm very much looking forward to a nap when we're done. I am so tired, but that's okay.
I'll try to pick up the pace a little bit here.
Oh yeah.
I'll try to
Oh yeah.
energize. We went to the theater last night.
Yeah. Say, just give everybody one more second to just
Yeah.
settle in, as I'm seeing that everything's working, which is good. We like when it all works.
Yes, we do.
And we're happy to be here with you. Yes, Victoria, well done. You remembered. Yes. They say I posted again that we're trying to do 1 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock because it's my attempt at making sure I can get my kiddo to sleep when she's supposed to. Again, ha 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 ha. But in theory, if she slept, that would be great. I'm headed to the TCM festival for the first time. Will you two be there? We will. We will absolutely be there, and very excited about it. Finding out.
I got my time slot.
Did you? Okay.
The main film I'm introducing is a film that I chose, a very, very obscure British film.
You obscure. You choosing an obscure film.
Called Mr. Cohen Takes a Walk.
Someone really spent a lot of time figuring out that name, huh?
It's a British quota quickie.
A quota quickie.
Yep.
Now, just remind, we did talk about this the other day because I'm fascinated by that phrase, quota quickie. But if you would just remind folks what a quota quickie is.
Well, Hollywood dominated the world movie market for decades and decades.
They did.
And most especially in Great Britain, where we speak ostensibly the same language.
Theoretically the same language.
So Hollywood studios were making a lot of money from British people paying, their admission prices. And the government decided that to be fair, they should be forced to spend some of that money in Great Britain.
That's funny.
And laws were passed that made that a requirement.
Yep.
And that's how a lot of big films like Goodbye, Mr. Chips and Yank at Oxford and films like that came about. But Warner Brothers took it literally and did the minimum amount that they needed to do. So they produced these very low budget films to fulfill the requirement of the government, and they called them quota quickies.
Quota quickies, which is just a term that I absolutely love.
And every now and then, whether by accident or chance, they made a good one.
Yeah, which is thrilling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hello from Michigan. Hello to Michigan. Hello from Indiana. Hello, Indiana. Jerry's in Birmingham, Alabama, of course. Paul says he saw Mr. Cohen Takes a Walk with Leonard back in Syracuse many years ago.
Yes.
Which I love.
Under the aegis of the man who introduced me to it, William K. Everson.
The one, the only, the great.
Yeah.
Ryan is saying, I love your shirt, Mr. Maltin. If I remember correctly, didn't you get that at the Warner Brothers store, Warner Brothers Studio store? And
yes, and it has survived literally like at least 20 years.
Oh, more has to be more.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Jingle Jill, which is one hell of a name, says, love your podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Ken says, can you wish me a happy birthday? Of course we can, Ken.
Happy birthday, Ken.
And we're so grateful that you always join us. It's so much fun to talk to you. Christopher, who is a loyal Patreon member, thank you, Christopher, says he liked our interview with Ben Modell.
That was fun to do.
Yeah, Ben is so interesting, and he'll be at TCM too, of course. It's a lot of TCM to me. Obviously, seeing the movies, that's a lot of fun. But it's just really neat to see everybody in one place. Anything that forces you to gather is great. That's a nice. It's a nice thing to get to do. To sort of force everybody together, and Yeah, really always looking forward to it. I'll tell you the one thing that is funny is, so my dad teaches Thursday nights, his USC class, and now almost every film festival starts on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Damn
Why?
near all of them
Why?
now start on Thursdays. And because of that, we missed the first / opening night of damn near every festival,
Yep.
including TCM. But so what my dad gets to do, thank Alex says he likes our podcast. Thank you very much. What my dad does is he walks the carpet at TCM.
Do little press interviews, get
Yep.
my picture taken.
Yep, and waves to the lovely people who have been sitting there. There's little stands that they can sit in, which is fun. And then he gets swept away to downtown Los Angeles. He doesn't get to see the opening night film. He has to go class, and it's almost always the last class of the semester.
Not this year, but
Okay.
most years.
Well, at least that then. Because it's just, yeah, it's too many good. It's. And I've taught my dad the phrase "first world problems." That's a solid first world problem.
Yes, it is.
You
Yes.
know. Oh, thank you, Christopher. Subscribe to Ben Modell's YouTube channel after listening. I'm so glad. Yeah, say Ben has a channel, and he's so interesting, and he does a stream on Sundays as well. He does a live stream on YouTube. Anyway, he's a great time, and we highly recommend it. Is there a classic film? Is that supposed to be set or sex scandal? Because you wrote sec. So I'm not sure if it's sex scandal or set scandal. Like the Raquel / Tom scandal. Oh! Are you, Shannon, you're the one who talks about the Vanderpump Rules. That's really funny. I forget that you're the one that mentions it because, again, I only have one other friend I can talk to about it. The short version, which we mentioned before, the show Vanderpump Rules,
Right.
A couple who's been together for almost 10 years, the guy has cheated on her
Who?
with another woman in the cast.
Oh my.
And it is messy, and I love it. I don't love what happened, but the messiness has been a show.
Okay.
It has been a show. And if you are like me and you require some sort of mindless entertainment, because as great as it is to watch all the good stuff, my parents live on HGTV. Like
no stress.
No stress, things like that. That's what they put on if they just need to sit and have someone complain about backsplash for an hour. For me, it's those Bravo terrible reality shows, especially the ones based here, because I went to school with so many of them. So that adds to it. No, of the scandal. I don't know what. There have been so many through the years. The Tim Burton, Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh into Helena Bonham Carter mess is pretty great. And again, I say great sarcastically. That was one of the worst, I think. It's just nutty, isn't it? I don't understand. On-set romances are always going to be fodder for,
I suppose so,
the news.
Human nature.
Yeah. Oh Lord, I can't.
Its raw state.
It is. It's absolutely bonkers. Alex saying Leonard read your Disney films book back in the 70s. Thank you for all the information on those films. You really poured your heart and soul into those books.
My young heart and soul.
Your very young heart and soul.
I was 20 years old when I wrote that.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Well, the 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
I worked on it for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Someone just asked if I like Hidalgo. I love Hidalgo.
Yeah, you do.
Great, great movie that I wish people could see on a big screen. The biggest screen possible.
Yeah.
It's a great action movie with something of a historical truth behind it.
Yeah.
They dramatized. And,
we got to interview Viggo Mortensen several years ago, and he does not want to be a movie star. He loves making things.
Yes.
He's a book publisher.
Yes.
Among many other
things.
He does many different things, but he's a book publisher. And he sent us a bunch of his books at the time.
Like his
which
entire
was
output, I think.
Really thoughtful and kind. And he just, he's a fascinating guy. And it makes sense that he would make a movie like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those sort of thoughtful but big films. Very enjoyable. Let's see. Has there been any updates on Mr. Maltin's Entertainment Tonight reviews being uploaded somewhere? Honestly, what I find is I either Google them or on YouTube I just search Leonard Maltin Entertainment Tonight, and a number of them do pop up. To my amusement, not to yours so much, but to mine, because I love seeing 1980s Leonard.
Yeah.
At your adorable nerdy peak, which is my favorite.
A nerdy peak.
I mean, it is a nerdy peak. What's the thing that aired recently that you hadn't seen in ages? It wasn't is $1,000 Pyramid? What was it that aired that somebody sent photos?
Oh, a Password Plus.
Password Plus. There you go. That aired recently.
Which is I was the celebrity guest along with Phyllis Diller.
Yep. Which is and that's the first time you met, and that's where the pins came from.
So when they do those shows, they call them strip shows because they're on 5 days a week. In the old days, that's how it worked. They would tape all 5 in one day. Mm-hmm. And Bert Convy was the host then. Dick Clark had moved on to other matters. And I was on with Dick Clark too. I'm confusing with Pyramid. Password Plus was also taped at CBS Television City. When I was growing up in New Jersey, that just sounded so cool. And it is.
You still say that when we drive by.
Yeah.
It's a neat thing to see a thing you've heard about your entire life.
It's a big deal. Anyway, I come in, burdened with 5 days of wardrobe, which I'm carrying in my arms very clumsily. And someone says, why didn't you call? We would have sent the wardrobe person down. I said, well, I work at ET. We don't have, such niceties as helping with stuff like that. So by day 3 taping or show 3 taping, Phyllis Diller noticed that I had a different lapel pin on every outfit. And she said, what's that about? I said, well, I just like them. And I collect them, cartoon characters and movie related pins. And for the next 15 years, I received packages and envelopes from Phyllis wherever she traveled. And she traveled the globe. She just kept sending me pins. What a wonderful, gracious, generous thing to do.
And then in the smallness of the world, I went to school. I grew up with her grandson, Corey. And he and I were in school together from the time we were maybe 5 years old. And then we graduated together. We knew each other forever. And it was really wild to me that especially since you had met her so long ago.
Sure.
When you started your relationship, the idea that, that I would be in school with Corey is still kind of, it blows my mind.
Someone just asked if I've ever interviewed James Newton Howard.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. And the location was Karlovy Vary in the Czech Republic. And how many years ago was that now?
6, 7? 6 or so.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And we had a wonderful afternoon.
He was great.
There was a piano in the room.
Well,
and he had brought clips. He had just finished doing Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
The score for that. And he played us like a first version that they turned down and a second version that he submitted.
What he talked about was you guys talked about what it's like when you're taking over sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a property or however, basically a continuation of a score. So obviously Fantastic Beasts is a part of Harry Potter and that series. And so he needed/wanted to use some of the themes from the original films and that music, which is so well known. And he showed us, especially because this was the first of the, not necessarily call it spin-offs, but some version of that. And he talked about how he needed to take Hedwig's theme, which is the da 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 that most of us recognize for Harry Potter, and change it. So what he showed clips and played the piano live, telling us different versions of how he tried playing the song. He said, so first I tried it like this. And he played it. This, by the way, was on YouTube. I don't know if it still is. Let me look.
It was a wonderful afternoon. Very stimulating and
fascinating
and educational. in the best sense of that word. I mean, it was eye-opening, actually.
But to have someone play as they show you clips and then explain how they made the choices, or him saying, I wrote this song for this thing, but then they asked me, you know what, actually, we think it would sound better with XYZ. It was just so, they say it was, I think it was something most of us have never and will never experience. And it blew my mind. Yeah, it's still there.
Oh,
The
great.
James Newton Howard masterclass is still there. It's so what I just searched on YouTube is James Newton Howard Leonard Maltin, and it comes right up. Actually, what comes up before it is with John Burlingame.
Ah,
So just right underneath that is you guys, and it just says Masterclass by James Newton Howard. So that's how I looked it up, and it's an hour and 22 minutes. And I'll be honest with you, it's a fantastic hour and 22 minutes. He was so interesting. And then he did agree to do the podcast,
not been able to
but then he
him.
keeps working. Because I said to my dad, that was fascinating. We have to have him on. And then he just keeps getting jobs. How dare he? You know what I mean?
Someone just asked about Jerry Goldsmith. I interviewed him on several occasions, but the first time I interviewed him was not about movies. It was about the fact that he worked in the waning days of network radio. His first job at CBS Radio here in Los Angeles was sort of inventorying their library music, stock music cues. And he then graduated to actually applying those cues into episodes of shows that were still running, like Suspense. And he didn't work on Gunsmoke, but he did work on Suspense and Escape and some of the very good shows that were done in the 1950s. When network radio was trying to hang on for dear life in the face of television. And then ultimately they gave him a shot at composing a score for one or two of the radio shows. And that gave him his first experience. And he said, what was so wonderful about that experience was he and the very small orchestra were in the same room as the actors. And the only one who wasn't in that room was the director, who was behind, soundproof glass in the control booth, throwing cues at the actors, and that they would all go out to dinner together or lunch together, because sometimes they had to do two performances, one for the East Coast and one 3 hours later for the West Coast. He was very happy to talk about that period. In fact, he went and got off his shelf 2 reel-to-reel tapes. And loaned them to me so that I could hear those early scores.
That's wild.
Wow.
Ken's asking if you ever interviewed Lionel or Alfred Newman.
Sadly, not Alfred, but I did have a wonderful interview with Lionel. And we used to have 20-minute load cassettes at Entertainment Tonight. And he said that was probably the longest he'd ever gone without cursing. He was notorious for his colorful vocabulary.
I love that.
And as I was interviewing him, we heard a piano distantly, like next door. That was John Williams. And someone was kind enough to go next door and tap Mr. Williams on the shoulder and say, would you be willing to say something about Lionel, which he did.
I thought you were going to say somebody went over and said, hey, turn it down. We're working over here. I want to be the PA who gets sent to tell John Williams to shush. That is the job of a lifetime.
And I took a snapshot.
Of course you
did. I have a shot of the two of them standing next to each other.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great memory.
Well, see, that's part of what is so, when you're in an industry for as long as you have been in this industry, to meet people, first of all, to know people through decades. So you meet them at this stage, at that stage, at this stage, at that. I think about that actually with Johnny Depp, because that photo popped up, the old one of you guys with the hourglass, because it was one of those things where it was like this day and whatever, and it popped up. And there's this great photo of my dad and Johnny Depp, and that has to be what year, if you're guessing?
Late 80s.
There you go. So you have that. And then
maybe early 90s,
and then there's photos later from different shoots. And Mommy talked about the time she went with you where he had that hat that had funny cutouts. And then you go to Santa Barbara because he got the Maltin Modern Master. And it's just like, it is kind of crazy to think about knowing someone, not like a friendship, but just knowing them through all of those years.
Yeah.
And there are a number of people where that's the case for you, whether you interviewed them in the 70s for yourself or for the magazine
Right.
or any number of things, into the 80s where it became Entertainment Tonight. So you were interviewing, again, I wouldn't necessarily say bigger names, but just higher profile in some cases that you may not have been able to get to yourself.
Exactly.
And then, to now, it just sort of blows my mind to think about that.
Well, when I got to chat briefly with Cate Blanchett during this Oscar season, I reminded her that I have pictures of us together in Santa Barbara when she was pregnant with her third child. She has 4 kids now altogether.
Do you remember what she asked you before she went on stage?
Could she have some chocolate?
Yeah. She asked if she could keep chocolate with her. And we were standing there and in unison, like 5 of us just went, you can have whatever you want. You can eat chocolate on stage, whatever you want, lady. Because it's friggin' Cate Blanchett.
Yeah.
But yeah, even that, as I say, it's a very, it's just sort of a mind warp at times to think about all the different stages. Even, we saw Nicole Kidman a few years ago in Telluride, and she said something along the lines of, Leonard, we've known each other a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that too, I can think of the different photos that we have around the house and all the different stages of that. Cause you interviewed her in the 80s.
Yeah.
And
when she first came here.
And 90s and 2000s. I say it's careers, man. Wow. Someone's saying you should do a show and tell of your Phyllis Diller pins, which you should. That would be interesting. Do you have a favorite that she gave you? I don't know which are hers.
Well, because she didn't really.
It was more thoughtful than it was
more,
what you
the
would
gesture
wear.
is what really mattered.
Yeah.
She would go to like World's Fair or a 4-H club hog calling competition, or if they gave her a pin, she sent me the pin.
Well, pretty solid. Pretty solid.
She was a terrific woman.
Yeah, man. As I said,
and they gave her an award at some group. It was, I think, charitably connected. Did a comedy show, and she was there. She was using a walker then, and she had come prepared with material.
Of course she had.
Every joke landed. Every single one. Not a, as they used to say about Lucky Strike, not a cough in a carload. No joke didn't produce the laugh it was intended to.
That's why there are only a handful of people who really are legends and icons and the rest of it. Because they can just do it. They can do it, and it's not even difficult for them. They just have that. I'm always amazed watching old clips of Joan Rivers, because as much as she became the butt of some jokes and as crazy as she was, if you watch especially she's so funny. Really
funny. If you haven't seen the Joan Rivers documentary,
so good. Such a good
It's
doc.
Really interesting, really good.
I really think it sheds a light in a way that most of us could never imagine.
No.
And she is fascinating.
Yeah.
And some of her craziness is explained.
If James Brown was the hardest working man in show business,
Jesus, man,
she was definitely the hardest working woman in show business.
Yeah. She never stopped. She really never stopped. But yeah, there's some with Carson that are just like, it's just so damn funny. This is where we are lucky that people upload stuff to YouTube all the time, and you find these clips.
What a phenomenon is YouTube.
Yeah.
Who could have predicted that such a thing would exist?
Do you remember the first time that I sat down with you to show you YouTube, to show you the click hole situation was you and I were in New York. You were filming something, and it was just the two of us. And we're sitting in the room, and I said to you, I found this really great clip and I want to show it to you. And that's the Lambert Hendricks Ross at the Playboy. And it's still one of my favorite things that exists in the world. If you like Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, or if you just like really good music, I recommend that to you. Just look up any of their live stuff because it's a knockout. But I found this one particular video that I love, and I showed it to my dad, and I said, and now, because I wasn't Joe Williams sings with them. I wasn't very familiar with Joe Williams. And my dad said, oh, no, I saw, because you saw him perform
Many
in
times.
person. And I said, oh, so we started watching those videos of him, which then got us into, he does something with Mel Torme, and I'm obsessed with Mel Torme. And that got us.
The Mel Torme, John Hendricks duo.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
On YouTube.
It's just ridiculous. The talent is overwhelming.
Awfully good.
But that's how that happened. Was
Yeah.
I said, you see, Daddy, you just keep clicking.
Yeah.
And they suggest things and you click on them.
Yeah.
And then you find footage from the 50s you never ever thought you'd see. And it's magical.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
To go back 3/4 of a turn,
Mm-hmm.
we went to the theater last night.
You did, yes.
Went to a tiny little theater. You know, there's actually 3 stages.
I've never
2 to 3
been.
stages inside
I've
that
never been.
unassuming edifice on Lancashire Boulevard.
Yeah.
It's called Theater 68.
In illustrious North Hollywood.
Yes. The NoHo Arts District,
Yes.
in fact.
Which I love that they call
Right
it.
across the street from Amazon Fresh.
Yes.
Can't miss it.
All the important things.
But we went to see a friend who was appearing in a play called Bill W. and Dr. Bob. And it's about the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm.
And it was so good. And our friend was extraordinarily good. That's Steve Gelder, who played Dr. Bob. And they worked with no sets, minimal props indicating, a few things.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, it's theater in the raw. It's theater. It's something films can't do. Much as I love films, and films are my life, I love theater too. And this is one of the reasons. Because theater can make you believe something is there that you can't see or hear or feel. I mean, it can take you places that by suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
It's magic. Now that's magic.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad it was good.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so glad he
too.
was good. I'm not surprised, but I'm so happy that it all worked out. And they went with a couple of friends, so there was a real Steve Gelder Appreciation Society on site. I'm going to look at some of your questions. So Jim from St. Louis said, I just saw the new trailer for Renfield, which looks insane. It's casting Nicolas Cage as Dracula. What do you think? I know Bella is your favorite, Count, but is there another actor you think deserves praise in the role? I was impressed by Louis Jordan in the 1970s PBS special.
Mm-hmm. I never saw that, but that was interesting casting because he was a very debonair French leading man, and I thought at least that's intriguing to me.
Yeah,
I never caught up with it though. And Christopher Lee, of course, played him more than once, and then various since. And a lot of the actors have tried to go as far away from Bela Lugosi, understandably, as possible, so as not to invite comparison. Well, Bela Lugosi is Dracula to me. Not that he couldn't do other things too, but he is my Dracula, as you often say.
It's the first one you've seen.
The first one you see.
It's the one that sticks in your
you.
head. You can't help it.
Yeah.
You can't help it. Matt says it's the season of Lent/Passover and assorted spiritual traditions. If you had to give up a movie genre or category for 40 days, what would it be? Well, so we are Jews, and for Passover, we only have to give up bread.
Yeah.
Or say leavened bread,
right.
Anything that is leavened. But I know for Lent, the idea is to give up something you love for 40 days. The idea is to give up something that you really love and care about. So I don't know.
Pizza.
Yeah. But he's asking about movies.
I know. Movies about pizza.
Movies about pizza. Pizza is his favorite food, so it makes sense.
It's nature's natural food.
It is.
Nature's perfect.
If you
food.
give my dad 3 things, applesauce, pizza, and chocolate, he will be the happiest
Not
man in the world.
necessarily together.
Though I have seen you eat a
No,
combination
don't go
of
there.
things,
Don't
but
go
okay. What would you give up? Well, I mean, for you, I think obviously giving up something like TCM or giving up the Westerns channel, exactly, that would do him in.
Not even
That
in
would
jest.
do him in.
Not even in jest.
Yeah, I think that would be the end for you if you couldn't have those things. That would be the worst. Sam's saying I would have to give up horror. I get it. Everybody has the thing that makes them happy or relaxes them, whichever you reach for. Nick's asking about the passing of low-budget horror film director Burt Gordon.
Burt I. Gordon.
He said I just said Burt Gordon.
I actually stayed up late a couple of months ago. I was getting ready to kind of wind down and go to sleep, and I made the mistake of turning on TCM, where they were showing Attack of the Puppet People.
Say that 5 times.
Which I frankly had never seen.
Attack of the Puppet People.
And I just couldn't not stay to the end.
It happens.
It's cheesy.
It happens.
It's ridiculous. And I was glued to the screen. So rest in peace, Burt I. Gordon.
That is, oh man. We keep getting, this is so strange.
Larry is asking if I ever saw Mystic Pizza. Yes. I saw it when it was new. But
no, they're not asking if you saw Mystic Pizza. They're making a joke about Mystic Pizza for the holidays.
Well.
But yes, Mystic Pizza is delicious.
But Mystic Pizza has another meaning to me because I one time collected or accumulated promotional giveaways for new movies.
Yes.
I subsequently donated most of my collection to USC, which may have it in a landfill by now. But it was an oregano jar dispenser.
Yeah.
Like you find at a pizzeria, old-fashioned pizzeria, that just said Mystic Pizza on it.
Yeah.
Like perfect time with the movie. Organic.
Yeah. This weird thing keeps happening to us on Twitter with our live stream, which is it keeps getting reported as having sensitive content.
Whoa.
I mean, I guess movies are sensitive. Perhaps films are sensitive content. Little did I know. Ken was watching The Unsinkable Molly Brown recently, and for some reason, when I was a kid watching it in a theater, I thought it had an intermission. Nope, so many longer films back then had an intermission with great music during it, like in How the West Was Won. I know it was to change reels, but I really liked it.
No, it was not to change reels. It was to give the audience a break.
Yeah.
And to sell more popcorn.
That's true. Yeah, well, that's multiple people have responded to him saying that it's definitely it's for the concessions.
I miss intermissions.
Yeah, well,
I pine for intermissions.
Yeah. It it's another one of those things. I understand both sides. I really do. You don't want to stop. But at the same time, you kind of need a break. And the way I always think about it is on Broadway, or anytime you see a show, there is almost always, with rare exception, an intermission. Well, if a show is good, when you come back, you're right in it again. It doesn't, 15 minutes.
When they did the restoration and reissue of David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia, your mother and I saw it at the Academy at the Goldwyn Theater. Great place to see any movie, especially one like that, epic scale and scope. And when the intermission came, I said, oh,
yeah,
and we went out to the lobby and milled around, and 10 minutes later went back to our seats. And yes, it's that good a movie.
If it's good, you just get right into it.
And nothing lost.
No.
Nothing lost.
No.
I've told the story before, but I did interview Peter Jackson on the eve of the release of the third Lord of the Rings movie, the end of that trilogy. And I said, did you ever consider putting an intermission in the movie? And he said, we did. And when it looked like it was going to run 3 hours and 21 minutes, we planned an intermission. But when we cut it back to 3 hours and 9 minutes, we thought, well, that's okay.
I mean, I took an intermission.
My bladder does not.
I took an intermission in those films because I fell asleep. So that was my own personal intermission. And you know what? It worked like a charm, because when I woke up, I watched more of the movie and it was still going. So it's fine. My husband's favorite films, some of them at least, and the books as well. He loves the Lord of the Rings films and the Hobbits. and he will watch them over and over and over again. And I can't actually even tell you which one's which angers him greatly. And I always have to ask what it is because I don't know. But that's fun. That's fun for him. He gets to feel important.
They're talking about Stephen Frears' wide-ranging career.
Sure.
I'm happy to talk about in just a moment. But I'm going to tease something. I've never done this before on our live stream, but I'm going to be doing a show and tell later on.
Yes.
Of some very rare animation material.
Yes. Well, so Craig said, I'm glad to see that you enjoyed The Lost King. Stephen Frears is a great filmmaker with such a wide-ranging filmography. Grifters, The Hit, My Beautiful Laundrette, Dirty Pretty Things, The Queen. Yeah, and you and Mommy very much enjoyed this most recent film. There is a review of it on the website. If you go to my dad's website, leonardmaltin.com, there is a review of it there.
Steve Coogan co-wrote it and co-stars in it. It's really Sally Hawkins' film, but Coogan is very good in it, and as he has been in so many films.
Yeah.
And he also writes he tackles interesting subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his writing partner, whose name has just escaped me. And this is no exception. It's based on a true story about a woman who became, it's fair to say, obsessed with uncovering the true story of Richard III, whom many people, especially in England, believed was just like the character that Shakespeare created in his play about 100 years later, but was not. She's convinced that he was not a usurper.
Mm-hmm.
He was the rightful heir to the throne, that he was not a murderer, and she wanted to set history straight. And typically she goes to professional historians and scholars, and they're very dismissive toward her because she's an amateur. And that's all I'll tell you. That's all you really need to know going in. If that, it's really, really, it's a thoroughly satisfying movie in a way that some Hollywood movies are like junk food or fast food.
Mm-hmm.
And a movie like this is more like a good meal.
Mm.
And if I may make so bold a comparison.
But it is. It's when you get to see something. It's like going to the theater last night and seeing something and going, oh, that felt good. It's having that experience and feeling like, yeah, this is exactly, I love that.
Now, Thursday night in class, we showed John Wick 4.
Yes.
And we had as our guest a USC graduate, Chad Stahalik, who turned out to be really interesting.
He has only directed the John Wick movies. That's it.
He's done a lot of second unit work and stunt coordination work. Stunt coordination work. What an interesting man. What a really and articulate
mm-hmm.
and passionate about what he does, which is what bonds him and Keanu Reeves. Because he says Keanu is believes in you should love what you do and do what you love.
Yeah.
And
he lives like that, which mm-hmm. is, there are not many that live up to sort of their own.
But I have to say, it must be said that it is brutally violent. Brutally violent.
But did you
it's not
see
just
3?
The body count. No,
that's what I thought. Did you see 2 or did you just see 1?
I just saw the first one.
You saw the first one. Okay.
Which I liked well enough.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, which is almost 3 hours long, for no good real reason, doesn't have to be, shouldn't be, and doesn't have to be. I respectfully submit. But it has 2 action set pieces that are among the greatest I've ever seen in my life. They're just staggering, absolutely staggering in their conception and execution. And the first thing I asked him after the film was, how much has CGI changed stunt work? And he said completely. He started as a stunt performer. He sort of
That's how he knows Keanu, because he worked on the Matrix movies.
Yep. And then he worked with Yuen Woping, right?
Mhm.
The legendary fight choreographer
Mhm.
for The Matrix and for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and for a lot of other films. And he learned, he's like a sponge. He soaked all that up. But his own background is his mother took him to museums, introduced him to great painters. He's very conscious of light and light sources and composition. And he shot this anamorphic widescreen. He's a really interesting fellow, which you wouldn't necessarily guess. I mean, the John Wick films are stylish, to be sure, but the content is so.
We just never know.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You never know with anybody. We've had, I mean, even just with doing the podcast, we've had some people who have really interesting careers and are just not great interviews. They're not great at answering questions,
Right.
or they struggle to answer questions. And you really just never know until you're sitting there with them. You don't know till you're sitting down and you go, oh, okay.
Early in my teaching career at USC, we had as a guest one night a very well-known costume designer with A-list credits all up and down the line, and who's still working, but she was not able to talk about her work. She could do it.
Yeah.
But she could, I mean, so that's no slam on her.
No.
It's like
that's not her job.
No, that's not her job.
No.
Her job is designing costumes, and she does that exceedingly well.
Yeah.
Her job is not talking about costume design.
One of the most interesting guests you had was the costume designer for Pitch Perfect. That he ended up being a fantastic guest, because one of the things that he talked about was that he had to dress everyone at the school, everyone. And if you think about that, so he said he had to figure out what the cool kids wore. Not only did he have to figure out what each a cappella group wore, but when you have those scenes where they're walking through campus, everyone has to be dressed and everyone has to have a purpose. So he talked about this clique looks like this and these kids look like this. It was so interesting.
It's one of Deborah Landis's two
yes
mantras. One is costume is character. True. And the other is every film is a period film.
Every film is a period
What's
film.
The period? Now.
Now. It has to look real to now, or you'll notice it. It just blows my mind. But he was such a good guest.
Yeah.
And because, again, it broke down stuff that I don't think anybody would think about. When you're looking at a big war film and you have God knows how many extras, people might be aware of it then. But when it is just normal, which is to say, if you're just a student walking through campus, in the same way that you have to cast extras, because otherwise that would look strange if you walk through a busy school quad and there was no one there. But also you have to make sure they look a certain way. And it's all those kinds of details that I love. I love when the kids get to hear it, because I think it just adds one more piece of the puzzle of what makes filmmaking so interesting, film and television so interesting.
And the other overall overarching lesson that we learn together, and I relearn all the time, is that movies are not made by machines. They're made by people. People who have to get along, people who have to work with each other, and maybe they don't get along and they still have to work with each other toward a common goal.
Yeah. Which is everybody at all, whatever job
any
you
field,
do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
Yeah. Craig is asking if you ever met or interviewed Topol.
No.
I always resented Norman Jewison choosing Topol over my Tevye, Zero Mostel, but Topol has grown on me over the years. Again, I think depending on who you are and what you saw, because I would say for mommy, it's our temple member.
Oh, Theodore Bickel.
Theodore Bickel. That is for my mom. That's her Tevye forever. Theodore Bickel. He was a member of our temple, and we would get to see him, and my mom would just lose her mind every single time. And he would sing sometimes, and that was just, mind blowing. But no, you never met him and you never interviewed him.
No. No, I didn't. Uh, I never saw it on stage,
Hmm.
and
Well, you did, didn't you?
yes, ultimately, yes, she played Fuma Sarah
We did. We did it at my school, and I was
in a
from
school play,
Sarah.
and she was damn
I
good
was a
too.
big old ghost.
And your Tevye was really good.
Willie Harris. He was very, very good.
The some people, including Norman Jewison, thought the Zero Mostel was sort of too,
Broad.
yeah, too broadly funny,
Mm.
and that he didn't capture the humanity
Mm.
and the underlying sadness
Yeah.
of Tevye and the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shalom Aleichem stories are all tinged with that, you know.
Heartbreak.
Yeah, heartbreak.
Heartbreak.
That's
Yeah.
the word.
Yeah.
You know, with the constant threat of death, expulsion, and any number of other ills.
Mm.
But I've seen the movie now enough and snatches of it here and there that I've gotten used to Topol too.
Yeah. It's funny what doesn't bother you, especially if you've watched it enough. Which again, something that sometimes you'll show a friend something and they'll go, "This is a lot." You go, "Oh, I guess I'm just accustomed."
Someone who is not a fan obviously asks what I think of George Arliss.
What is your opinion on George Arliss? I find his type of acting hard to watch.
Well, it's very theatrical, and it's some people find it artificial
Mm-hmm.
in its theatricality. If you kind of go with it and accept him on his own terms, which is the only way to watch it. I mean, if he'd been transported to the later 20th century and gone to a
Method acting
class, or gone to see Lee Strasberg or
Mhm.
Stella Adler,
It wouldn't have gone well.
they would have shot him dead.
Yeah, it wouldn't have gone well.
They would
for
have
them.
shot him dead.
No.
But I loved Arliss, and I love all of his films were vehicles. They were tailored to his talent and to his way of storytelling. And so I'm a card carrying fan.
You are. You have a poster. You've always had posters of him.
Yeah.
About the house.
Yeah.
So I think I've probably seen him more in our home than I have on a screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I always go back to when my dad shows different films in his class. Sometimes he'll try to show older movies, and it's really interesting to see how they play and how they hold up and what the kids think of them, because in some cases it still works. It's scary or it's funny or whatever it is, and in other cases it just doesn't anymore. And that can be the case with effects, with visual effects as
Yep.
they get older, where something just may not look as real as it did at the time, because now we can make anything look
Yeah.
real. In the same way that certain styles of acting or shooting something in a certain way, it can come off as cheesy or over the top, even though it wasn't. And it always blows my mind with the kids, because you just don't know until you're playing it for them. You just don't know what they're going to think. I'm always fascinated by it. Norma Shearer was a big hit in my film classes, but most of my classmates were baffled by Judy Holliday.
Really? That's interesting. They accepted Norma Shearer, who is also a theatrical, declamatory style of actress. They didn't get Judy Holliday, huh? I just find her so likable. That's the first word that comes to mind. But maybe it's I'm a New Yorker. Yeah. That helps. She was a quintessential New Yorker.
Yeah. It's like people who watch The Nanny and don't get it. There are very few.
I'm going to lean out of frame here.
Lean out of frame. Every now and then I'll meet someone who goes, "I just don't understand why The Nanny is funny." And then I go, "We probably can't be friends if you don't find that funny." And that's okay. But yeah, some stuff, as I say, some stuff just doesn't work. And it is interesting to see sort of how someone reacts and what specifically they react to. It's like, for me, I bring up Miracle Worker, because that was the cast of the stage play going onto film. And a lot of what they're doing is over the top. And that can feel very sort of forced. At the same time, there are performances in that film that are still so believable and knockouts. You know, they're still so good. Oh my, we have big show and tell, as in
Yeah.
physically large. Look what you did. Oh,
We have a theme today.
you do. You do have a theme.
Well, I guess ever since animated I'm sorry, I keep
It's
jiggling
okay.
the.
Just get your foot over so you're
Yeah.
comfortable there. There you go.
All right. Ever since cartoons came along, people have been intrigued. How do they make them things? And there's a documentary in the works right now.
Is it called How Do They Make Them Things?
Probably not.
Okay.
Uh,
Nick's is saying, any chance of getting Fran on the podcast? I wish we could get Fran Drescher. I would try for that. She doesn't do a ton of interviews, but yeah, I would give it a go.
People always want to know, how do you make cartoons? Well, you have to start with drawing. And even today, if you're using a stylus and a computer, you're still drawing. And if you can't draw, it's tough. But drawing is not the same thing as animating, as I came to learn. That was a hard lesson to learn, because there's some great animators who are not necessarily great draftsmen, but they understood movement. They understood expression. And that was what the assistants could do, the heavy lifting when it came to tracing the.
Dell is saying, great popumentaries on the 3 Popeye DVDs that you were on.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I like that.
Thank you.
Popumentaries.
So in the early 30s, Max Fleischer licensed, or maybe even published, a book which is a rare item.
It says Betty Boop's Movie Cartoon Lessons: How to Make Movie Cartoons by Max Fleischer. Here's the back.
I don't remember where I was lucky enough to find this.
There's the man with Betty. This is great.
And then when I was growing up,
hang on. Here's steps in drawing Betty Boop.
And this is all legit. I mean, you have to have the internal structure of the skeletal structure of a human character. And Betty Boop was a rare human cartoon character.
Yeah.
Most of them were animal, anthropomorphized.
Anthropomorphized.
When I was growing up, I used to watch religiously Walt Disney every week on his hour-long show. But I also was a great fan of the Woody Woodpecker Show, hosted by Woody's creator, Walter Lantz. So when this book came out, Walter Lantz's Easy Way to Draw, spelled E-Z.
That's how you know how easy it is.
No, it's not. It's spelled out. I'm wrong. I misremembered. And again, it goes into the structure of all of his characters, Oswald the Rabbit and Wally Walrus and all that. But the best part of this copy is that it was signed to me.
And you got a drawing.
Yeah. By Mr. Lantz himself.
Jesus, 1977. To Leonard, with best wishes, Walter Lantz and Woody Woodpecker, June 19th, 1977. Good grief. Good grief.
Now, and to my embarrassment,
you tried it.
I drew in the book.
You tried drawing a bit.
And I couldn't get it. Oh, there are other pages that are worse, that have crayon.
Oh, Logan. Logan was asleep and just fell off the couch. It's okay.
Okay. I'll leave that there.
Yes.
And then over the years, I read somewhere that Paul Terry of Terry Tunes
Logan.
Walter Lantz was a newspaper cartoonist like Max Fleischer, who became intrigued with this new form called animation. So he was kind of one of the second wave.
Yeah.
He I don't remember if he actually saw Gertie the Dinosaur, but many people who were there when Winsor McKay debuted that said, that's for me. That's what I want to do. Paul Terry didn't actually write a book, but he did put out this very fragile, like a game box, Paul Terry's How to Draw Cartoons. And in it is, in fact, a book with a diploma on the back.
Ooh. Oh, sorry, guys. The light's catching it.
There's a Mighty Mouse sketch pad. Crayons.
This is to certify that blank is a member of the Junior Cartoons Club. Ken says Mighty Mouse was his hero. Dell saying, remember the matchbook covers Learn to Draw?
No, I don't. I used to watch John Nagy, Learn to Draw with John Nagy. He was a star of early television. And another book that took me decades to find, and it has now been issued. If you buy the Criterion Blu-ray disc of Frank Tashland's The Girl Can't Help It, with Jane Mansfield and a bunch of rock and roll stars from the 50s, they have a facsimile copy in the box, in the DVD Blu-ray box of this book, Frank Tashland, How to Draw Cartoons. And Frank Tashland was a very talented man who worked at several.
Author of The Possum That Didn't, The Bear That Wasn't, The World That Isn't.
He worked almost everywhere. He worked briefly for Disney. He worked most famously at Warner Brothers for Leon Schlesinger. He theorizes here and proves his theory that everything is based on fundamental shapes. That was the opening of John Nagy's Learn to Draw. Can you draw a cube, a ball, a cone? Then you can learn to draw with John Nagy. Finally, now this is very different, and the most fragile thing I have here, so showing it off is going to be tough, but I'm going to try to do it.
To me. Okay.
This is actually a pantograph, which is an old invention that still is used, where it's used sometimes, probably now in the computer age, it isn't used anymore. But it used to be used for duplicating signatures. Because
oh, wow. Huh. Okay, here. Give me this.
Yeah.
All right. Hang on.
And the thing is, Leon Schlesinger, all those years he produced the Looney Tunes, and before selling out to Warner Brothers in the mid 40s, didn't do a lot of licensing and merchandising. And even Warner's wasn't that good at it, or that avid in that area. Disney owned that. You know, a man, well, to be fair, a man named Kay Kamen approached Walt Disney in the 30s and said, let me do your merchandising. And he was a dynamo. And he really lit Disney on fire for licensing and merchandising. And made him a king, made him a lot of money, and which helped finance the studio, and keep it alive, pay the increasingly large payroll as they expanded to do feature films. That's my show and tell for today. It's my animation show and tell.
It's a good show and tell.
It's a good one that I've never done before, but this is really swell stuff accumulated over many years' time. I have to emphasize that with my collecting, is that if you set out today,
oh no,
and said, "Oh, I want to get all that stuff," and money is no object. Well, money may not be the object. It's finding it at all.
Yep.
And part of it's the thrill of the chase.
Oh God, yeah. That's I think the most fun part is the searching. That's the part that I like when we go to places and we try to find things. That's always interesting to me.
The quest,
the
quest is definitely part of for at least my generation of collectors.
Yeah. Steven says, "Gee, that was swell." Yes, a lot of people are very much enjoying this this haul.
Thank
Hall
you.
O stuff.
Thank you. This just fell in here. We did miniatures last week.
Yeah.
Tiny stuff. This is a tantalizing tea puzzle. The 4 pieces enclosed in this envelope, when properly put together, will form a perfect letter T like the one shown below. So what?
Yeah.
Well, please accept this puzzle with the compliments of John, Ethel, and Lionel Barrymore in Rasputin and the Empress, now playing twice daily, 2:45 and 8:45 at the Apollo Theater, which is at the intersection of Randolph and Clark.
There you go.
In what city? I do not know.
What more do you need than this tea puzzle?
Sounds like it might be Chicago.
Man. Well, that was excellent.
Thank you.
Those were very enjoyable.
Thank you very much. It was fun showing them off.
Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. We love being with you on Sundays. I appreciate your being all right with us switching the time. As I say, my life is.
They had no choice.
My life, yeah, right. My life.
We did not give them the option.
My life is now ruled by a very small person. I did get to shower this morning, though, which is why my hair is still wet. Which, if you are someone with a small child, you will know that getting to shower is like the greatest thing in the entire universe.
Victoria's asking, do people just send you stuff? Not this kind of stuff.
No, yeah, right. Sometimes, but usually no. I think that more than anything, you guys just like sharing stuff with each other.
Yeah.
What you find.
Yeah.
But no, I wish. Yeah, that's. Imagine if these things just appear at the door. One can only dream, right? Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Man, everybody take care and we'll see you later.
And be kind. Bye-bye.
Okay.